Did you know that 75% of people experience anxiety about public speaking? That's a staggering number. In fact, it's often listed as the #1 fear, even ahead of death. Crazy, right? But here's the good news: you don't need to be a natural-born speaker to connect with your audience. You can learn to be a great speaker using simple strategies that anyone can master. Many believe that great speakers impress us with fancy words and complicated ideas. However, research shows that the most memorable talks use straightforward language and relatable stories. For instance, TED Talks, those captivating presentations we love to watch, are more likely to go viral when speakers use simple, clear words. In fact, talks that resonate emotionally can reach millions, while complex speeches often fall flat. So, what makes a speaker great? It's not about having an extensive vocabulary or being flawless on stage. Instead, it's about sharing powerful stories, connecting emotionally, and being yourself. In this video, we'll explore why simplicity, storytelling, emotional connection, strategic pauses, and authenticity are key to captivating an audience. Get ready to discover the secrets behind powerful speaking. By the end, you'll be equipped with practical tools to inspire and engage your listeners like never before. Let's dive in. Chapter 1: The Myth of Big Words, Why Complexity Kills Connection. There's a big misconception about public speaking, the belief that using complicated words makes you sound smarter. In reality, it does the opposite. Studies from Princeton University found that when people try to sound more intelligent by using complex language, they actually come across as less credible. Why? The audience has to work harder to understand them, and that creates distance. Great speakers know that clarity is power. Take Albert Einstein, for example. He once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." And that's the trick: keeping things simple helps people relate. If your audience can't follow you, they're not going to trust you. An interesting stat: research by the American Press Institute shows that readers understand 80% more when sentences are written at an 8th grade level or lower. So why complicate things? The best speakers use words that everyone can understand. Instead of using utilize, they say use. Instead of commence, they say start. This isn't about dumbing things down, it's about building bridges. The more accessible your language, the more people you can reach. It's no surprise that TED Talks, which average over 1 billion views annually, tend to feature speakers who use simple, clear language. They aren't trying to impress you with fancy words, they want you to feel connected to their message. Chapter 2: The Power of Storytelling, How Stories Speak Louder Than Facts. Humans are wired for stories. While facts can inform, stories make us feel. In a 2016 study by Stanford University, researchers found that people were 22 times more likely to remember a fact if it was wrapped in a story. That's a huge difference. When you tell a story, you're not just delivering information, you're creating an experience. Take a look at the most memorable speeches in history, like Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream." It's full of vivid, emotional stories. King wasn't giving a lecture on civil rights, he was painting a picture of a better future. Why does this work so well? Stories activate multiple parts of the brain, including those connected to emotion and memory. People relate to characters, empathize with struggles, and celebrate victories. That emotional connection drives action. So, instead of saying, "Our product increases efficiency by 25%, you could share a story about a real customer who saved time and transformed their business. It's not the data that sticks, it's the human experience behind it. Think of Steve Jobs during his Apple keynotes. He rarely overwhelmed the audience with technical specs. Instead, he told stories of how Apple products changed lives, and the crowd ate it up. People remember the feeling of the story, not the numbers. Chapter 3: Emotional Hooks, The Magic of Speaking to Hearts, Not Minds. Great speakers know that logic alone won't move an audience. It's emotion that makes people lean in, listen, and remember. According to the Harvard Business Review, emotional appeals are significantly more effective at driving action than logical arguments. People don't always make decisions based on facts, they make them based on feelings. Take President Barack Obama's speeches, for example. He often blended data with emotional stories, creating a connection that inspired millions. When he spoke about healthcare, he didn't just throw out numbers. He shared stories of families struggling with medical bills, making it personal and real. This technique is called an emotional hook. It's a moment in your speech where you stop explaining and start connecting on a deeper level. It could be a heartfelt story, a powerful metaphor, or even a vulnerability you share with the audience. The goal is to make him feel something. Research backs this up. A study published in Psychological Science found that people are more likely to remember emotionally charged messages than neutral ones. This is because emotions trigger the release of dopamine, which helps to cement memories. So, how do you create emotional hooks in your speaking? Start by thinking about what matters most to your audience. What keeps them up at night? What are their biggest hopes? Address these emotions directly, and don't shy away from being human. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, in public speaking. Think of Brené Brown, who became famous for her TED Talk on vulnerability. Her willingness to share her own struggles made her message more relatable and impactful. The more you connect on an emotional level, the more your audience will remember your words long after the speech is over. Chapter 4: Strategic Pauses. Why silence speaks louder than words. Great speakers know when to pause. They understand that silence isn't empty, it's powerful. In fact, a well-placed pause can be just as impactful as the words you say. It gives your audience time to reflect, absorb, and anticipate what's coming next. Science agrees. Research from the University of Illinois found that short pauses during a speech can increase comprehension and retention by up to 30%. Pausing allows your audience to catch up, mentally digesting what you've just said before moving on. One of the masters of the pause was Steve Jobs. During his famous product launches, he would often pause after announcing a new feature. He didn't rush to the next point. Instead, he let the moment sink in, building suspense and allowing the audience to process the significance of what he had just revealed. Another brilliant example is Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. King used strategic pauses to let key points resonate with the crowd. The pauses made his words feel more profound and allowed the emotion of his message to settle in. How can you use pauses effectively? First, practice feeling comfortable with silence. It's easy to want to fill every gap with words, but restraint can be more powerful. Use pauses after key points, when transitioning between ideas, or when you want to emphasize something important. Think of a pause as giving your audience a moment to breathe. It also gives you, the speaker, a chance to collect your thoughts and ensure your message is landing. Silence can speak louder than words if used with purpose. Chapter 5: Authenticity over Perfection. Why being real wins every time. Great speakers don't aim for perfection, they aim for connection. The truth is, no one relates to someone who seems perfect. People connect with authenticity, vulnerability, and honesty. As public speaking expert Nick Morgan puts it, the more authentic you are, the more powerful your message will be. A study from Cornell University found that when speakers admit to their mistakes or acknowledge their flaws, the audience finds them more relatable and trustworthy. This doesn't mean you should stumble through your speech, but embracing small imperfections can actually make you more likable. Consider Oprah Winfrey, one of the most authentic speakers of our time. She shares personal stories of her struggles and failures, and that's what makes her so compelling. When she speaks, people feel like they're hearing from a real person, not a polished performance. Being authentic means being yourself, flaws and all. If you try to sound like someone else or put on an act, your audience will sense it. Authenticity isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. And that realness creates trust. Another example is Simon Sinek, author of Start With Why. In his talks, Sinek often stumbles over words or loses his train of thought. But instead of hiding it, he embraces it. He laughs it off and continues, and that makes him more engaging, not less. So, how can you bring authenticity into your speeches? Share personal stories. Talk about what you've learned from failure. Don't try to be overly polished or perfect. Let your personality shine through, even if it means showing some vulnerability. In the end, audiences don't want to hear from a robot, they want to hear from someone who's human, someone they can relate to. The more authentic you are, the more powerful your message will be. By the end of this video, you'll discover how to captivate any audience with your unique voice and story. If you enjoyed these insights, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on becoming a great speaker. Together, we can transform your public speaking skills and make every speech unforgettable.